Good morning, everyone. Welcome into this day with Quimper Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. There is too much beauty in this world to give up on it yet, and it is always too soon to surrender to cynicism. Bring to this place your doubt, your skepticism, your downright confusion, even your bitterness. But in the midst of these, in the center, wrap your tender fingers around that still, bright thread of hope. Feel in your heart that still, steady hunger for something more. The vision we glimpse every day in the sun rising above the mountains, the light that spreads across the face of one we love, the eagerness in the eyes of our children, and still loving life just as it is, loving us just as we are. For this hour, we come to celebrate, to praise, to give thanks, to steady ourselves, to refuse to give up, keepers of hope, brave builders of this still possible world. My name is Elizabeth Walker, and I'm a member of the board here at QUUF. As we gather, I acknowledge that the water, land, and shorelines here in Port Townsend are the traditional territory of the S'Klallam and Chimicum peoples. We honor and acknowledge our Indigenous members and neighbors and vow to help restore and sustain these homelands. If you're visiting today, I offer a special welcome and invite you to join us for refreshments and conversation in the fellowship hall after this service. We have a newcomers table near the patio doors where our greeters are ready to answer any questions you might have. Welcome to you all this morning. We're glad that you're here. Announcements, and now the one, the only Rose Spritzer.
Yeah, it's you.
Hello, everyone. As your official auction mascot, I have to ask, can you feel the excitement building?
Yes!
And did you know that bidding officially starts today at 12 noon? It does. All the bidding is online, and it will be open until the day after the auction, Sunday, November 12th at 6 p.m. And I have to be honest with you, I can't wait to start bidding. But have you already registered to bid? If you have, then bid away. If not, all the information and links are in your weekly update and on the website. And did we get wonderful donations? Yes, including a gorgeous painting by Diane Onofrey called Pure Joy. Check out the online auction catalog, and there are overnight stays in Uptown, a shellfishing adventure, a boat trip, cakes and cookies galore. And there are classes, field trips, game nights, delicious dinners, and other things. So please join me at the Camp Bid-A-Lot auction on November 11th. And you can get your tickets today or this week. It will help the planning team make sure we don't run out of marshmallows. Camp Bid-A-Lot will start with a mix and mingle party at 6 o'clock, and there will be light bites, drinks, and 3 bonfires in the courtyard. We'll all get a chance to test our s'more making skills and to buy raffle tickets because lots of groups have donated marvelous gift baskets to the auction. That's 10 of those will be auctioned that night, raffled off that night. And Sigrid Cummings will be our MC and camp director for the evening at the program in the sanctuary that will start at 7 o'clock. Joseph Bednarik will lead the Fund and Need bidding, and there will be music and the epic slideshow. If you can't be there in person, your link to the 7 o'clock Camp Bid-A-Lot auction program will come a couple days before the event. And the link will also be in the weekly update, so please watch your email for that. And finally, I'm pleased to share this year's exciting Fund a Need projects. The Facility Oversight and Safety Team is working hard this year to bring about safety and accessibility improvements to QUF and is asking for Fund a Need support. All the money raised for these two projects will go toward replacing the maintenance reserves. So the projects are the beautiful new paved walkway out here in Memorial Circle area. That costs $14,000. And revamping the fire exit in the loft, along with roof repairs for another $5,000. You can read more in the weekly update or in the auction catalog. So you can make donations to our financial reserves by donating to the Fund a Need online at the auction website or at Camp Bid-A-Lot. If you're not going to register for the auction or attend the auction, you can donate by writing a check to QUF with Fund a Need in the memo line. As my grandpa Spritzer said last week, I hope you liked him, be bold, be bold, be bold in your support for QUF. Thank you all for the support you give QUF. Your donations to the auction and Fund a Need will help us realize our mission. And don't forget, bidding starts today at noon. I predict we're about to have a sensational auction. Thank you.
Thank you, Rose, and thank all of you for supporting QUF with your money. More announcements. John Collins will lead the discussion at this evening's AHA meeting on the separation of church and state and the rise of Christian nationalism. Potluck today at 5 in the fellowship hall, followed by discussion. All are welcome. There's a box under the social justice table in the fellowship hall for warm clothing for the Winter Welcome Center. Please contribute. Our lovely flower arrangement today was donated by QUF Recorder Ensemble in honor of and with gratitude for Galen Clark, who founded our ensemble. Let us settle our minds and calm our hearts.
November is National American Indian Heritage Month, and so it seems fitting to begin with a tribute to that heritage. The tune, Lac Qui Parle, originates from the Dakota Indians of Minnesota and is most often ascribed to Joseph Renville, the son of a French fur trader and Dakota mother. Whether or not he wrote the original tune, it is certain he was the first to set it to paper and include it in the Dakota Audouin, or Dakota Hymnal, making it one of the oldest indigenous published pieces from that region. Lac Qui Parle is French for lake that speaks, and was the name of a lake in Minnesota where Joseph Renville settled. The original hymn, as it appears in the Dakota Audouin, is a hymn in praise of creation. Lac Qui Parle will be performed by Diane Onofrey on tenor, recorder, and John Galm on drum.
And we begin in beauty. Thank you for that opening. Our opening words come from Pat Uribe Lichi. We gather. We bring our sorrows, our disappointments, our failures. We gather for healing, for laughter, and to rejoice. We gather to find new ways of loving, new ways of thinking, new ways of being. We gather, yes, always we gather, for it is in gathering that we find our hope. It is good to be together this morning. I'm going to need the notebook, because that's just how I am this morning. I invite you to join with me in saying the words for the lighting of our chalice. The chalice we light is a symbol of our faith. It binds us together as one people. A reminder of our strength is in our shared hope for the world, and that our common work is the creation of beloved community among ourselves and in the world. And so our chalice is lit. Let's join in singing. Our opening hymn is number 298 in the gray hymnal, Wake Now My Senses.
Wake now my senses and hear the earth call. Feel the deep power of being in all. Keep with the web of creation your vow, giving, receiving, as love shows us how. Wake now my reason, reach out to the new. Feel the pilgrim who quests for the true. Honor the beauty and wisdom of time. Suffer thy limit and praise the sublime. Wake now, compassion, give heed to the cry. Voices of suffering fill the wide sky. Take as your neighbor, both stranger and friend, praying and striving their hardship to end. Wake now my conscience, with justice thy guide. Join with all people whose rights are denied. Take not for granted a privileged place. God's love embraces the whole human race. Wake now my vision of ministry clear. Brighten my pathway with radiance here. Mingle my calling with all those who share. Work toward a planet transformed by our care.
So it's the time for all ages, and today we have a watch party. Hey, nice to see you. Now that's eagerness. I love that. So watch parties will always be announced by the pink blanket when it comes out. And we have to sit really special today so that we can see the screen because we have a watch party. So I invite children of all ages, or the childlike, or the childish. Any of them can come forward and just be sure to sit so that you can see up front, okay? Because you need to watch, we're going to watch up front, okay? And I want to start by letting you know that today, with the adults, I'm going to be talking about being in community with each other and what that means and how important it is for us to be in community together. You might want to scooch over maybe. Would you? I don't know. Okay. It's kind of hard to see. Let's, how about up here? Can you come sit? Do you think? Awesome. Thank you. You are so brave. You guys are so awesome. Well, okay. That works. It's going to, well, they'll turn around when they're ready. And we all get to watch as we do. So we're going to be talking about community. And this video that we're going to watch has a lot to do with community. So let's go ahead and get started. Christina, please.
It's smarter to travel in groups. Take the bus. The lane. It's smarter to travel in groups. Take the bus. The lane.
So what do you think, you guys? Is it better to be together with other people, to keep yourself safe, to help each other along the way? Yes?
There's that penguin, the penguin one. They all went to the edge, and then
One didn't, and it just
it slid down. Yeah, we're talking about the penguins at the beginning and how awesome they were, right?
And they went,
And yes, one of them did not slide down, but eventually just came and got down there with them. I love this.
and they made it a little lower.
It made it lower enough so that the orca really did kind of pop into it. Yeah.
And hit itself.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. All right, one more comment.
And I really did the crab one.
You liked the crab one because, yeah. the seagull got really scared and couldn't stop. I love that one. This is about a bus company in the Netherlands, and they want people to use public transportation, and we don't get to use public transportation much here, but we can all agree that it's better than we work together. So that's our time for all ages today. I hope you enjoyed it. I invite the adults to rise and make an arch, and let's sing the children and our friends out to their time. Go on,
Peace, may the spirit of love surround you
everywhere.
Everywhere you may go. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go.
Now is the time for our offering. So we pause for a time of generosity and to receive an offering which today is shared between QUF and our local food banks. The ushers will come among you to receive the offering, and additional ways for giving are projected. And our offertory music today is Minuet from Suite Number 1 in D minor by G.F. Telemann, performed by the Recorder Ensemble.
Thank you for the beautiful music. We pause in our service each week to share the joys and sorrows of our lives. We recognize that our personal joys and sorrows are only a small fragment of the joys and sorrows of the larger community of life. And so we place our first stone today, thinking about our neighbors and friends who do not have houses to live in. As was noted, there's a collection of clothing, warm things to be given to our neighbors and friends who need them. And I encourage you to remember them and to help out as you can. Within the community, I want to light a candle of gratitude from me and Peter Tietz, but particularly from my husband Peter, for the cards and good wishes that he has received since his surgery. Thank you to all the care that you have offered to our family over these weeks. And the good news is we're both doing pretty dang well with the whole palaver. We place a final stone, holding in our hearts all the joys and sorrows among us that are unexpressed, but of no less importance. Thank you. I invite you now into a few moments of quiet and reflection, of prayer, meditation, or simply stillness, as is most your custom. I'll offer some words, a poem, Blessing by John O'Donohue, and then we'll have some moments of stillness together. I invite you to close your eyes as that feels comfortable for you, to perhaps roll your shoulders back, and to settle yourself into your breath. These words. On the day when the weight deadens on your shoulders, when you stumble, may the clay dance to balance you. And when your eyes freeze behind the gray window and the ghost of loss gets into you, may a flock of colors, indigo, red, green, and azure blue, come to awaken in you a meadow of delight. When the canvas frays on the curragh of thought and a stain of ocean blackens beneath you, may there come across the waters a path of yellow moonlight to bring you safely home. May the nourishment of the earth be yours. May the clarity of light be yours. May the fluency of ocean be yours. May the protection of the ancestors be yours. And so may a slow wind work these words of love around you, an invisible cloak to mind your life. Let us pause in stillness together. So may it be. Amen.
Our reading this morning is from The Sum of Us What Racism Costs Everyone and How We Can Prosper Together by Heather McGee. McGee's specialty is study of the economy, and in her work, she recognized that there is a zero-sum mindset that goes into policymaking. It assumes that if a policy benefits one portion of the population, another portion would necessarily lose. Though her work is primarily focused around race, it's clear that there's impact across other divisions as well. The old zero paradigm is not just counterproductive, it's a lie. She says, I started my journey on the hunt for its source and discovered that it has only ever truly served a narrow group of people. To this day, the wealthy and powerful are still selling the zero-sum story for their own profit, hoping to keep people with much in common from making common cause with one another. But not everyone is buying it. She says, everywhere I went, I found that the people who had replaced the zero sum with a new formula of cross-racial solidarity had found a key to unlocking what I began to call solidarity dividend, from higher wages to cleaner air, made possible through collective action. And the benefits weren't only external. She says, I didn't set out to write about the moral costs of racism, but they kept showing themselves. There is a psychic and emotional cost to the tightrope white people walk, clutching their identity as good people when all around them is suffering. They don't know how to stop. But that is done, it seems, in their name and for their benefit. The forces of division seek to harden this guilt into racial resentment. But she says, I met people who had been liberated by facing truth and working toward racial healing in their communities.
One more. I'm eager to hear you too. These words from Richard Rorty in his essay, Solidarity. The right way to take the slogan, we have obligations to human beings as such, is as a means of reminding ourselves to keep trying to expand our sense of us as far as we can. That slogan urges us to extrapolate further in the direction set by certain events in the past, the inclusion of us, of the family in the next cave, then of the tribe across the river, then of the tribal confederation beyond the mountains, then of the unbelievers beyond the seas, and perhaps, last of all, the menials who all this time have been doing our dirty work. This is a process which we should keep going. We should stay on the lookout for marginalized people, people whom we still instinctively think of as they rather than us. We should try to notice their similarities with our similarities with them. The right way to construe the slogan is as urging us to create a more expansive sense of solidarity than we presently have. The wrong way to think of it as is to recognize such a solidarity as something that exists antecedently to our recognition of it. For then we leave ourselves open to the pointlessly skeptical question, is this solidarity real? We leave ourselves open to Nietzsche's insinuation that the end of religion and metaphysics should mean the end of our attempts to not be cruel. Here ends our readings for today. Please. Someday I want to let all of you sit next to that piano and feel the music. Oh my goodness. And the recorder ensemble. It is just so delicious to sit up here and just kind of be bathed in the vibrations. So I got to tell you, y'all, this week I was happily scrolling through Facebook, and I got to see this helpful reminder about what this weekend means for preachers. Strap in, folks. It's going to be a long day. I'm kidding. I have to say it really was just quite a delight to roll on that, and I had to share it with you. So when I was serving a small congregation in Vermont, in this small little village, I learned that it had been a long-standing tradition for the minister encouraging people to vote on the Sunday before any election. I also got to be part of the election process there for the first time. I volunteered to sit with a Republican, a man whose parents were members of the church and who had grown up in our church. They were some of my favorite people. So I got to sit with Bruce and check people in at town hall as they entered to vote. In addition to in this village having the town hall offices, there was this beautiful theater that had been renovated some years before, and in that high-ceilinged place, we sat at the end of the aisles and checked people in so they could go up the few steps onto the stage to the little voting kiosks where they voted. And once Bruce and I had checked the person in, we would hand them their ballot. Some of you will have voted this way before. A 17 by 22 inch piece of paper, remember those, right? That they would take up and then check all of their votes at the little platforms where they got to vote. That night, I went back to town hall. It was only a few steps from where I lived, next to the church, and helped to count the ballots by hand. Two of us would take a packet of 25 ballots, and one would read the votes and the other one would tally. Both of us then signed the ones that signed the ballots with the now tabulated results, and it was all over by 10 o'clock, and I got to go home. It was a small, small town. In August of that year, before this, when I had arrived in Woodstock, I stepped out of the parsonage on a Saturday morning. It was located right next to the church, and I was immediately in our summer fair, an annual event that was well attended. It wasn't more than a half an hour before someone approached me who was registering people to vote. She asked me to raise my hand and to swear that I would vote without fear or favor of any person. And then she asked me to sign a piece of paper. And I was registered. And then not much later than that, small states are really fun. A car pulled out and Bernie Sanders popped out. He was my congregational representative, and he came out and was shaking hands all around. I got to shake his hands. You know, it's a small state, and as I say, it's a lot of fun and a small community, attested to the fact that the driver license that I carried with me that time. This is back in the 80s. Many of you will remember when we had driver's licenses that were just small pieces of paper that had only information typed on them, right? We remember these? Mine was green. There was no photo back in those days. And I have to tell the story my friend Scott told about when he was traveling with his family and they were in North Carolina, and he went to go buy beer for he and his wife for that evening as they checked into their hotel. And the guy selling it to him looked at it and said, "Where's your photo?" This is the 80s. We had photos at that point, some people. And he said, "How do I know this is really you?" And Scott said back without a pause, "It's a small state. Only 500,000, we all know each other." Scott left with his six-pack in place. All of this is to say that that was really the only time that I've taken part in an election other than voting myself and helping to get the vote out. But it's not a small thing, that voting and getting the vote out. And here we are on the cusp of an election, and I trust you'll be doing your civic duty if you haven't already. Peter and I have a date for later today. I may have forgotten to mention it to you, darling, to do just that, to do our vote today. Anybody else voting today? Yay! And while this election is one that is unlikely to have cataclysmic outcomes, unlike our election next year, each time we pause to fill out a ballot, I trust that we also pause to figure out how our votes contribute to living out our dearest loves and our best hopes for each other. I commend to you this year, particularly to pay attention to the Board of Education elections. No matter where we're voting, it's an important civic responsibility. And that's what I reflect upon as we approach the election, our hopes and our loves for each other. Considering who exactly is included when we think about our community. You see, I know that it's highly likely that many of us will vote in the similar way, and that many of us are probably pretty close on policy issues that we think are important for the general good. Still, it matters that we pay attention to this. Heather McGee, who specializes in the American economy, over years of research has discovered that we as Americans prosper best when we prosper together. The image that she lifts up to start us in recognizing that is when public swimming pools in the South were forced to integrate, and the response of the governments was to close the pools entirely. So everyone lost out. You probably have seen that image of a man pouring acid or bleach into the water of a pool where black people were swimming, and it forced everyone out. It meant no one could swim, not just that the black folks couldn't. It's a striking image to consider, but don't be fooled into believing that we've gotten anywhere past those kinds of days. McGee reports on work done by psychologists Maureen Craig and Jennifer Richardson, which asked white people to consider the fact that by 2042, people of color will outnumber white people in the US. The participants were asked to, quote, indicate their agreement with the idea that this increase in racial minority status will reduce white Americans' status. The folks who agreed with that were likely to shift their policy views on even race-neutral policies like raising the minimum wage and expanding healthcare and even drilling in the Arctic. Regardless of party affiliation, McGee tells us, white folks shifted to endorsing more conservative positions. That zero-sum idea is built into our system. When someone wins, someone else loses. There can't be a way for both of us to win. And yet, her research shows us that that is in fact the case. Think of the talking points we hear when we listen to folks talk about our tax structure. We have makers and takers, taxpayers and freeloaders who get accused of taking handouts. It's not the corporations who get that, though they get a lot more than any of us ever have. A few years ago, I was listening to a story on NPR where this reporter went to Eastern Washington to hear perspectives about a government program that was going to give an equal amount of money to everyone. I think it was $1,200. The reporter was talking to a farmer who received huge subsidies from the government year after year, yet she didn't seem to notice that she also was getting a big handout from the government every year. She acknowledged that she got it, but saw it as her due, simply, not as something that was being gifted. And she was only concerned that someone undeserving might get the $1,200 to make their lives a little bit better. Her whole livelihood depended upon a handout, and she had no ability to see it. It was stunning to listen. We do better when we are pulling together. That's why I found those commercials for us to watch. I have loved these for years. Had any of you had seen them before? Some of you? I just think they are the most brilliant commercials. When we're working together, we all do better. When we look out for those who have been historically left out, those who have had to work much harder to achieve less, we do better, all of us. When we pay attention to who is included when we say we, and then extend our borders, life becomes better for everyone. I come back to those words from Richard Rorty to remember that part of our spiritual work is to be ever expanding our sense of who is included when we say we. He says we should stay on the lookout for marginalized people, people whom we still instinctively think of as they rather than us. We should try to notice our similarities with them. Who is that person that we have similarities with? Is it the person who has no place to live, who is huddling under blankets in a doorway? Is it the parent who struck their child? Is it the drunk who is just trying to get through the day? Is it the conservative, the MAGA supporter? Who is our neighbor? I wonder how many of you know about the story of the Jews in Denmark during World War II. And a few of us are familiar with it. It's one of the stories that can bring me to tears. Fred Small, a UU songwriter and minister, as it happens, has a song about this called Denmark 1943 that I could not listen to when I was driving because I would start crying and have to pull over. In Denmark, during World War II, the Jews were spirited away by their friends and neighbors. 90% of the Jews who had lived in Denmark survived the war. It was a combination of luck and organization that made it happen. A word coming of the raids that spread through communities, and their neighbors saw the Jews not as strangers or outsiders, but as what they were, their neighbors, the shopkeepers, the children who played in the street. In some measure, beloved. More than 7,000 Jews were saved. An article tells us about this, about more of it. After the war, most Danes refused to take credit for their resistance work, which many of them had conducted under false names. Ordinary people who had never considered themselves parts of the Danish resistance passed along messages, gathered food, gave hiding places, or guarded the possessions of those who left until they returned home. Think about that. Guarding the possessions of the people who left so that when they came back, they had a home. They didn't see themselves as heroes. They were, as Fred Small notes in his song about this miracle in 1943, they were just looking out for their own. Democracy works best when we're looking out for each other, when we includes more and more people all the time, and when we are lifting each other. In these times of bitter separation of so many kinds, and especially as that gulf expands, it is incumbent upon us to continue to hold that more expansive, more inclusive vision. It is incumbent upon us to be ever so mindful of those places where we want to exclude those others we haven't seen as us. As I noted, this particular election, while it has its meaning, is not likely to be as cataclysmic as next year. But the work that we do with our voting and our everyday life is always the same: to keep lifting love into the world, to continue to expand our understanding of who we are, and to work for the whole of us. It is truly the work of a lifetime to never stop the work of discovering the blinders that stop us from seeing who is worthy of love. Stop seeing that we do all belong to each other, and that there can be enough for all of us, and to see that making it so is in our hands, to make it true. So may it be. Amen. I believe we sing next. Come and go with me. Tell me the number. 1018 in the teal book. If you want it, the words will also be projected.
And choir members, please come forward and sing to us.
Ooh, all right. It's going to rock.
Come go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land where I'm bound, where I'm bound. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land where I'm bound. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land where I'm bound, where I'm bound. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land where I'm bound. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land where I'm bound, where I'm bound. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land where I'm bound. There'll be singing in that land. There'll be singing in that land. There'll be singing in that land where I'm bound, where I'm bound. There'll be singing in that land. There'll be singing in that land. There'll be singing in that land where I'm bound.
Thank you, choir. Our closing words by Robin Gray. As we prepare to depart, may we give voice to these hopes. May we know ourselves bound in community even when we are apart. May a passion for justice burn in our lives. May we carry the light of compassion in our hearts and in our every interaction. And may we be whole in our devotion to truth and always carry the lamp of peace before us. May it be so with us today and in the days to come until we are together again. Amen. Oh, extinguishing the chalice. Dang, I knew there was something. Please say the extinguishing words with me. We extinguish our flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, the fire of commitment, or the power of transformation, These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.